Okay, carefully. This is the sample bagged up. I have some recommendations to follow. Hey guys, I'm trying to establish whether I can do these videos, and for today I decided to do an oil test and an oil change on my own car. That's a Seat Leon right over here. It has a small 4-cylinder Volkswagen turbo petrol engine in it. It served us very well over the course of the last 8 years, and as such there is some investment to be made on it on the outside of the car. To make sure investment pays off, I've decided to do an oil test. I will be sharing results at the end of the video, and I'll be doing a few more tests, and if everything is fine, I'll be investing to replace and fix a few bits and pieces on it to make sure the car lasts us a long time, at least as a second car. So let's dive right into it. So when I do something, I like to be prepared. This is a very simple procedure, but the chance of making a mistake is nevertheless there. When you are doing this for a living, this may be a routine job, but when you are DIY like I am, then any type of mistake here can be very, very expensive. And to avoid that, I like to lay out the things I need in front of me. When I do that, I can focus on the procedure itself rather than thinking where my parts are, where my tools are that I need for the procedure. So let's talk a little bit about what we have here. This is an oil set. We will be talking about it just in a bit. Now there are a few tools and accessories we need for the procedure. This is a cheap screwdriver set we need for a few bolts under the car. This is just a regular funnel I use to pour the oil into the engine. There is a Volkswagen one that has a wider opening and can be fitted firmly to the engine, but some people do not use any. I like to use it because I don't like to spill the oil everywhere. This is just a paper towel. There is a shop towel you can use, which leaves less residue when you clean stuff, but I forgot to buy it. That's why the regular one. Now, one of the more important tools is the torque wrench. The torque specification on this car for this procedure goes from 2 Newton meters for a few bolts that I will hand tighten, over 20 Newton meters for the filter and 30 Newton meters for the drain plug. So this torque wrench goes from 10 Newton meters up to 60 Newton meters and covers the needs of what I need during this procedure. Just be careful when you buy or rent a torque wrench that it fits what you need. This is a filter socket, which is for this car and this filter 74 millimeters in diameter, but you can use whatever fits your car. And there are a few safety bits. I use this I wear when I'm under the car. I don't like oil and the particles in my eyes. I believe you don't as well. And this is a pair of gloves to prevent my hands getting soaked with oil and other chemicals. So this is something I would recommend using. Now some parts we need for the procedure. So this is the oil drain plug. For my car, there are two sizes of them. So the one here is a little bit longer one. It's about 30 millimeters, and it was always used by the dealership. It has a washer on it that's fixed. But there is also a second size. If you go to a dealership and ask, they will tell you there is one that's a little bit shorter, about 22 millimeters or 26, something like that. It has a washer that can be detached and replaced. I believe that either one is fine. I use this one because it was always used by the dealership, but if you want to be extra careful, you may want to double check the size of the oil drain plug you have for your own car. This is a filter that comes with the gasket. I bought the OEM one, any aftermarket one will fit, just a normal decent filter, nothing else. And this is also the oil. So the oil I use here is the 5W30. So this is the viscosity of the oil, and this is recommended by the manual for the car. The dealership themselves, they used 0W30 in the last few oil changes, and I think the only difference is that one is a little bit thinner when cold, probably allowing for a better, easier start during the winter, or something along these lines. But because I'm not an expert and this is recommended by the manual, and also there is no official announcement not to use this one for my car, I use the 5W30. Nevertheless, when you decide to change the oil on the car, accept the viscosity of the oil. Another thing is also important, and that's the standard over here. So the oil you buy has to adhere with the standard of the oil, and you will find which standard is applicable in your owner's manual or you can ask the dealership and they will tell you. So this is also very, very important. Alright, so this is the oil test set we talked about. The way this works here is you find a lab in your region that does the oil testing, you make an order and they send you a package. You take the sample and send the package back. In this case, the package contains even a paper towel, which is very neat, a plastic bag to pack the sample in after you take it. There is a form you have to fill with the details about the engine, mileage, when did you take the oil sample, stuff like that. This is just another box with a syringe that's used to take the sample, and there is also a manual inside as well. So the syringe can also be replaced by an ISO certified bottle, which is very clean, but they don't need that level of accuracy, and the basic set will do just fine. Now the procedure is rather simple. So you take the syringe, you screw this into it over here. It operates like a basic syringe, so nothing new there. And this pipe that's used here goes into the dipstick tube after it's of course attached to the syringe, so you can actually pull out the content of the oil you need. And for this procedure you need at least 60 milliliters of oil, so we will be able to take a little bit more, or at least I will be trying to take probably, you know, at least 80% of the capacity of this syringe that's over here. Unfortunately, as far as I can tell, there is no indicator on the syringe, but I think we will definitely, it fits more than a 60 milliliters inside of it. Okay, so let's take the sample before we change the oil. We have now to pull the dipstick out, and I have laid out here a few pieces of the paper towel not to ruin anything with oil. And there is also a syringe that's completely assembled, but I kept the cap at the end of the pipe back on to avoid any dirt coming in. So now we are going to put the pipe from the assembled syringe down the oil stick tube. So when it reaches the bottom, okay, pull it a little bit out. That's it. Now we need to pull the syringe up, and the oil should start flowing into the syringe. Okay, carefully. Okay. So this is a fair bit of oil. This is the sample bagged up and prepared for sending. It has a plug on it that came with the syringe, and it also has the handle from the syringe removed. Of course, the dipstick is now back in the car. So now we have to move to actually changing the oil. The first thing is to prop up the car somehow. So there are a few ways you can do that, but the easiest one for me is to buy these rams. I will link the ones I have below. They are sturdy and can hold the car or the front of the car up in the air. I have the chokes for the rear wheels because I want to make sure the car doesn't go backwards. But of course you have to put the car in gear, have the handbrake on and everything else. And as an added safety, I have some 6-ton jacks that I'll put under the car just in case. You can always do more, but this was sufficient for me, so make sure you're always safe under the car. Alright, so the jack stands I have are unfortunately too high for the setup I have here. So for added safety, I have also added 2 spare tires under the car that I have, and I will back up the car at the central point here with the jack I have, which is about 3 tons in capacity. we are going to remove the isolation from below the car, which is held by several bolts, and that's the first step we are going to make. Then after that, we are going to remove the oil cap to allow the oil to flow easier, remove the old oil filter, replace it with the new one, and then we are going to drain the oil. Okay, so the isolation is out, and now I can do a quick inspection just to see whether there is anything dripping on it, like oil or something like that. Here we can see there is a little bit of drippage from something, but this is mainly water from the rain last night, so I double checked that everything is fine, and I see no problems under the car. The next step is opening up the oil cap and pulling out the dipstick so that oil can flow out easier. So the next step is calling for removing the old oil filter, then cleaning the mating surface between the filter and the housing, and then putting the new oil filter on. I will also lubricate the gasket of the new oil filter and then just hand tighten it before I torque it to spec. To do this, I have a catch can below the oil filter. It will capture all the old oil that will drip out, and that's very important because you have to dispose from the old oil correctly. Let's leave it now to drip a little bit. Now you will want to make this drip all the way out, or at least enough that you can safely turn it around without spilling it everywhere. Okay, now we have to clean the surface between the oil filter and the housing, and once we remove the old oil filter, there was a black gasket left there, so I also removed that, and now you can see the metal, and it can be easily cleaned with a towel. I use a paper towel, but a shop towel will be probably just a tiny bit more appropriate. So we just make sure it's clean and there are no major particles on it. Okay, so now the gasket of the new oil filter has to be lubricated with the new oil to get a better seal in the housing. let's fill a little bit of new oil into the new filter. All right. So now the new filter has to be hand tightened to the housing. So the torque of so we are going to torque the new filter in the next step. So very carefully, the new oil is going to drip a little bit. Bring this so it has to go in without much resistance. And whenever you feel some, do not push it. Just slowly, very easily hand tighten. Okay. In this step, we have to apply the torque to the new filter. So as per my notes, it should be 20 Newton meters. So let's take the wrench and set it to the proper torque. Okay, so we have exactly 20 Newton meters set here. So carefully tighten the new oil filter to the housing. Okay, so now we removed the socket. I have to warn you that the socket was not that easy to remove, so I just used my hands to slowly remove it, but it took a little bit of effort. Keep in mind that this guy doesn't or must not move at any moment in time, and everything has to stay exactly the same as when you tighten it with a specific torque. So now I will do a bit of cleanup, and essentially that's it for the new oil filter. One thing I like to do is I clean it up, take a picture of it, and make sure that at the end of the procedure I check that everything is exactly the same and nothing has moved or there is no changes that I would not like to have. Okay, so now we have to drain the old oil out. So we need to put a new oil drain plug in, and for that we need to set the torque wrench to the 30 Newton meters. So now the new oil drain plug goes in. First by hand. It should be easy and smooth and without any major resistance. You may feel a little bit as you go along, but you should still be able to overcome it by hand. It's a little bit slippery here, so take that into account. Final step, do a bit of a clean. So now we have to position our funnel, which is going to be a little bit nasty because this funnel is really not really fitting for this purpose. But we are going to try to do that best way we can. And as added protection, I'll add pieces of this towel around to make sure I don't ruin the rest of the engine with the oil I maybe accidentally spilled. So this should do it. As you can see, this is clearly not a good fit, but it's good enough. The important bit is you have to pour oil a bit by bit inside of it. That's why I will be buying the official funnel for this. Okay, now so let's check if there is anything that's spilled. There is nothing significant. We will close a few times, as you were able to see. So next time a better funnel will be with the dipstick is back in. So we let that soak for a moment. We're gonna checking the dipstick now can be a little bit tricky because the car is on the incline, but we do have 4 liters of oil. Check how much oil we pour. So let's put the cap back on. I'm certain that we will not have any need to add more oil into this, but we will be sure just in a bit. And let's check the oil level. The car is still on the rams, but we want to make sure the new oil is in. Nothing is somehow magically disappearing anywhere, and everything is fine. So let's see. So the first pull, we remove the residual oil. We put the stick back in, wait a little bit, pull it out, and then check. It shows as full, which is good enough, and we will see what's going to happen when we actually remove the car from the rams and measure the actual oil level, but so far so good. All right, so we are now in the car is still on the rams, everything as it was before. The new oil is in, we checked that it is in, we also checked if there is anything leaking under the car, so everything seems to be in order. Now is the time to start the car. So first, let's initialize everything. All the lamps are off that need to be off, so there is no oil lamp or anything like that, no warning. Start the car. We let it idle for a little bit. All good, all normal, no warnings. So we are good now. Let's take the car off the rams and check the oil level. The last part of the oil change is resetting the oil change interval. Normally this is done using a tool such as OBD11 or VCDS or something else, but the Volkswagen cars from this era, 2016 and around, do support resetting the oil change interval directly from the infotainment system. This can be done by holding the 3 preset button and turning on the ignition. In that case, the 2 questions pop up on the screen. The first one is oil change interval reset and the second one is inspection interval reset. Those questions can be confirmed by pressing the 3 preset button again. Press and hold the 3 preset button. Turn on the ignition. Press 3 preset button again, and this is it. Hey everyone, the oil test results are in. Before we start talking about the results themselves, let's just talk briefly about the oil test in general. So the oil test itself is a test of a state of the oil, and that in turn can give some information about the general health of an engine. For example, an excessive wear inside of an engine can result in having a lot of metal particles in the oil, or if there are contaminants in the oil such as fuel, that can indicate a certain type of problems with the engine. So we have to keep in mind that the oil test is not the full picture, and we will be doing more tests on this particular car and this particular engine, such as compression tests and other, but it's a good starting point, for example, to get a general picture of how the engine operates at the moment, and as well as to maybe tune oil change intervals or similar benefits. So the document you see here is the document that I translated from the original, because the original document was in German, and the style of the document, the data inside of it is completely unchanged. Even the format itself is exactly the same. What I will be doing is I will link this document in the documentation so you can take it as a reference. The document itself has several chapters. The summary is at the beginning of the document, and you can see that I have like a yellow oil drop, which indicates that I have some recommendations to follow, but nothing critical, and the individual results are underneath of that chapter. So let's talk about the individual results first. So the first section we have are the wear metals. As far as I understand this, this is a particle count of different metals in the oil. As you can see, my results are saying that I have a minimal presence of iron and aluminum, and no other metals are detected. And on the right side, there is a summary from the lab that says that the wear elements are present in very, very small amounts, which is an indicator there is no excessive wear inside of an engine. The second section here that we have are additives. The additives are the additives that are present in the oil when it's actually bought, and I think this section should be the comparison between the additives in the oil when it's new, that stems from a database that the lab has, and then the oil that we take from an engine probably has a different amount of those additives, and that can indicate the state of the oil after a certain running time. So in this particular section, we don't have exact results because the lab unfortunately did not have this oil in their database. However, I don't consider this a particularly critical section for our use case and the mileage we have on this oil. So the next section we have are the contaminants. Now in this section, this is about contaminants that are different than the metal particles we talked about before, and the lab wrote in the summary here that almost no solid contaminants were found. The only issue that was raised was slightly elevated fuel contamination in the oil. In my case, this was about 1.65%. Now I did some research, and as far as I understood, the up to 2% is normal for engines with a direct injection. Also, another contributor to this situation could be a lot of short drives when the engine doesn't really have time to heat up properly, and a lot of mileage goes into those short drives, leads usually to higher fuel contamination. In my case, approximately half of my mileage for this oil was short city drives. However, in judging by these results, there is no need for an immediate action in my case, and I'll just keep an eye on this and maybe do another oil test in the future just to check how things are developing. So now we have a few sections related to the general oil condition. We have the visual analysis, infrared analysis, and we have viscosity analysis as well. And all three of those point that the oil is in a very good condition. It looks almost brand new, no sludge, no deposits, nothing of that sort. There is only one remark made that the oil behaves like a little bit thicker oil, which is considered normal for this mileage and this type of oil. So it behaves like an oil of viscosity 40 compared to the viscosity of 30, like when it was a brand new oil. So no red flags here and nothing to worry about. So now we have the final summary. The lab wrote here that there are no major issues with the engine nor with the oil. Only some signs of the oil aging have been found, and that's considered normal judging by the whole report. There is one recommendation, however, and that's not to extend the oil change interval. For this particular test, I extended it a little bit to what I normally do. So I normally do 7,000-8,000 kilometers before I change my oil. For this time, for this test, I had about 11,500 kilometers to get a more conclusive results from the sample. But from the manufacturer, for where I live, the recommended interval is about 30,000 kilometers, or once per year. Now, granted, if somebody does it once per year, it's probably not 30,000 kilometers they have on that oil, but still it's probably more than what I do. And the question is, how does the oil look like at about 20, 25,000 or even 30,000 if someone drives that much between the oil changes? I believe if that's done once and you change the oil at 30,000 or something, it's probably not a big deal. But I do wonder what happens if the oil is changed all the time at this large mileage, or if the oil change intervals are extended because of the neglect or any other issue. So judging by the report and what the lab said, this seems to be quite important. And yes, this is something I'll, of course, continue doing every 7,000-8,000, but it would definitely be, I would definitely be curious to see what happens if the oil is changed across the life of the engine every 30,000 kilometers. So there you have it. My engine looks healthy. The oil seems to have done its job, and there is only this fuel dilution that I have to keep an eye on. But in general, I'm happy with the results. At least at the moment, it seems the engine is operating normally and without major issues. But as I said before, I will be doing more tests to establish the full picture of an engine, and keep your eyes peeled for those videos. Then we will move to some maintenance, maybe some fixing as well, to make sure the car lasts us a long time. See you next time.